Right. Hey there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Nick's Knowledge and Notions NQ Science Series, brought to you by the Seven Spheres of Money. I'm Nick, and as always, I'm joined by Mr. Seven Spheres of Money himself, DJ the Money Coach. And we're joined by special guest, our second team member to come onto the platform to tell their story. Cybersecurity engineer. A real estate investor, budding real estate investor, just to name a couple of things. But of course, I'm going to leave it to DJ to give the glowing introduction. I give regular introductions. DJ, he gives the glowing introduction. So I'm going to leave that to him. And I'll just kick it over to him, so we can jump right into this conversation.
Absolutely, man. It's a fired up day in America, man. This is one of the great days. We're off to a great start to the month of money. March Madness in the house, coming off that amazing Black History Month. And you and I all know Black history is 24/7, 365. You can't have an American history without Black history because we are the nucleus of American history. So tonight on Nick's Knowledge and Notion NQ, baby, we bring in a real-time baller to the program. This gentleman is not only a cyber, security engineer, he's a world-class music producer as well. In addition to that, he's a real estate developer, not a real estate investor, but a real estate developer. I mean, this is a guy who's actually going to create multi-generational wealth for his family because his parents and their parents set the tone of about ownership and equity in this corporation called the United States of America. Not only are we proud about that, he's also a member of the Seven Spheres of Money program at the executive level, also a investing founder in the Forex program. And without further ado, he's a young, sharp Black male debunking all the myths about where are the good Black men in America in the millennial age group. Without further ado, I'm going to bring you our great friend and member of the program, Isiah Lindsey in North Carolina. What's up, Isiah?
Hey, everyone. How's it going? How's it going, DJ? How's it going, Nick?
Man, it's going great, brother.
Good. Glad to be here. It's a pleasure to be on, and just really excited.
Man, definitely. And I forgot to mention a do-it-yourself guy too that does actually, home improvements and all that good stuff. So, Isiah, man, you got a long resume for a short time on this planet. So why don't you quickly give us a little backstory? Tell us about Isiah Lindsey when he was like 10, 11 years of age, and actually what pathway he decided to go on in this illustrious career you have that's only beginning right now.
Well, so it's actually kind of interesting that you bring that up, because earlier this week, in terms of, 10, being, 10, or 11 years old and everything. So earlier this week, I was actually working on, my father and I were actually working on some real estate stuff, in which I'll get into that a little bit later. But during that time, I actually had a flashback of, and I'll never forget this story. So I was actually, before we get to the part where I was 10, I was actually 5 years old. 5 years old, and my father, he owned a bulldozer. And so, I pretty much grew up around heavy equipment and everything, cars, trucks, and all that good stuff. So he had a bulldozer, and we were clearing a lot and everything on the land that we own. And so my mother comes in from work on her lunch. She worked at the, just a few minutes down the road or whatever. And she came in and she saw, bulldozer, and she asked my father, she was like, "Well, who's that on the bulldozer?" And my dad was like, "Isiah." And she was like, "Isiah who?" And it was funny because, she and of course I can't remember the story and everything, but my mom and dad, they talk about it all the time. And, my dad kind of gives my mom a hard time about it and everything. But actually that's, for me, kind of how I guess, if you will, kind of, discovered, working, basically working with my hands, if you will. being able to operate, because I was 5 years old, on the bulldozer and everything, being, knowing how to operate the levers, push the, the pedals and all that stuff. So after that, I guess I was about maybe 6 or 7, somewhere between maybe 6 and 8. And I was always really fascinated. Again, I love to work with my hands. And my grandmother, she actually had this. Well, it actually wasn't my grandmother's. It was my cousin's computer, but it was at my grandmother's house. So I had a computer. It's one of those old. I'm kind of showing my age here, but it was one of those old Radio Shack Tandy computers. Yeah. So it was one of those. And
hold up. You had a Radio Shack Tandy. You ain't that old, dude. That's my generation.
Yeah, I'm a millennial and everything, but I'm somewhat of an old soul, if you will, and everything. But yeah. So it was a Tandy. It was one of the Radio Shack Tandy computers. So I actually, just kind of, tinkering around and everything, being, a curious, inquisitive child. I actually took the computer apart. I took a couple screwdrivers and everything, found a few of my uncle's screwdrivers, took the computer apart and everything and put it back together. And, again, it worked and, and all that stuff. But I was always kind of curious and, again, loved to work with my hands and things like that. So fast forward to, around 8 to 10, 11 years old, I actually worked with my uncle. Well, also my father and my uncle. Again, my father's he's a diesel engine engineer. So he works on heavy equipment, diesel engines, trucks and things like that. And we've always had heavy equipment, and I've always been exposed to heavy equipment and things. And so I, just began to, kind of work with him. And then I had an uncle as well who I worked with. He was a truck driver, and he'd be on the road, and every few weeks or whatever, and he would come back in off the road. And he had, he worked on cars on the side as well. So I worked with my father, and then, also worked with my uncle on cars and everything. And so I say all that to say this, that actually kind of took me in the direction when I was in middle school and also high school, that took me more in the direction of getting into tech. So that's kind of what sparked my interest in everything. And, I was really good with computers and things like that, all throughout school. And so long story short, I went to college and studying computer science, and computer science just wasn't really my thing. So I switched to business, graduated degree in business, and got out there and, kind of got into marketing. So actually my first job was in marketing, and I just, didn't really like it. It wasn't really hands-on, things of that nature. So I made a career change, if you will, a job change or career change. And so I actually, ironically, started working in mental health. So I started working in mental health, mentoring kids and working with families and doing intensive in-home therapy and, providing those types of services, community support, those types of services and everything. So during that time, I was also basically the office intern, if you will. So I was responsible. I actually approached my director at the time and asked them, if I could be responsible if I could kind of be part-time on the IT team and everything, and basically be responsible for maintaining the office equipment. And, so they pretty much were on board with it. In addition to that, that's also one of my selling points, if you will, is that's actually what I was going to grad school for at the time as well. So I was working full-time in mental health and then also going to grad school full-time for information systems management. So that was kind of the way that I was able to break into, to IT and everything. So I worked in mental health for about 4.5, almost 5 years, doing, providing the services to, to children and families and adults as well, while also being, the break fix kind of help desk guy in the office. So if there was, an issue with the, a computer, laptop, desktop, printer, network, those things and everything, it would be in addition to my responsibilities as a family-centered specialist or a counselor. It would also be my responsibility to maintain, the equipment and things within the office. From there, I actually left working in the mental health field. He went into healthcare IT. So I took a contract position in healthcare IT. It was a full-time position. Worked in that for a few months and everything, and loved it and everything. The only problem was my contract ended. So my contract thing. So I actually stepped over into. There was another opportunity that came up to work in the community college system. So took a job, basically, ironically, as a technical writer. And the way that kind of ties into everything is when you're dealing with break fix type stuff, you have to know how to not only do you have to know how to take things apart and put them together, how to troubleshoot and support things and everything, but you also have to sometimes be able to communicate that information to customers. And it's actually a somewhat of a soft skill that unfortunately a lot of times, we as, I guess, technicians and engineers or people who are highly technical, a lot of times we have the hard skills in terms of knowing how to facilitate a task or, how to repair something or how to troubleshoot something, but we don't know necessarily how to articulate it. So I took a job basically as a technical writer and basically being responsible for writing all the documentation, the break fix documentation and everything. And my manager at the time, he basically assembled a team, if you will. And the team was responsible for writing policies, procedures, standard operating procedures, things of that nature, because let's just be honest, we really didn't have a lot of that stuff in place. So he assembled a team, myself and a few other co-workers and everything. So we were all a team and everything, and we were responsible for the basically creating the documentation, creating policy and procedure for the organization. I seemed to on that role, and so I actually got promoted from basically the technical writer, if you will, into a systems administrator. And then so within the systems administrator role, you're basically responsible. I was actually responsible for asset management, so manage the assets of the entire organization across multiple campuses. And
hey, Isiah, let me interject right here. How old were you when you were doing all these amazing things, dude?
I was actually in my 20s. I was 27 at the time.
Wow.
Let me back up. So from when I was working in mental health, I worked in mental health from like 22 to 27. 22 to 27. From there, I worked in healthcare IT / the community college system, if you will, from 27 to 30. And then pretty much from where I am now, I work from 30 to basically just turned 37 or 31 to 37. I've been working in cybersecurity. So, all of this within, a 15, within the span of, 15 years, straight out of, basically coming straight out of college.
Wow, man. How did you have the wisdom to go into those specific industries? Because actually 3 industries are really high paying jobs. And I would like to give our viewers, especially the young ones, insights on how to pursue a career pathway like that. Because right now, cybersecurity is probably the hottest thing on the planet. Mm-hmm. And healthcare administration information systems is still a huge, very great industry to work in because it ain't going nowhere. Right. And it pays extremely well. And you can even do that stuff from a remote standpoint. So before you finish off your story, man, can you enlighten our young viewers and listeners of what pathway and how they could actually get into those 2 specific industries?
Sure. So it actually all, to a certain extent, kind of goes back to like when I was in grad school, or actually after I finished grad school, I started working on IT certifications, and like one of the biggest certifications out there, at least at the time, it's a certification called IT or CompTIA A plus.
Yeah, I
Now,
remember that.
basically, the Comp certification, it's more of like a break fix type certification. So it's basically has to deal with your knowledge of troubleshooting, whether it's a laptop, could be a desktop, could be printers, networks, so on and so forth. So I basically, at least at the time, I'm not really sure what the requirements are now, but it was a 2-part test. So you take a part A, which is kind of the theory, if you will, or at least at the time it was, and then part B was the kind of the practical hands-on type skills, if you will, that you have to kind of troubleshoot your way through a problem, if you will, based upon the questions that are asked. So the next step in that sort of in that particular in the CompTIA family is the Security Plus certification. Now, if you combine, and again, and I'm not really sure how it works, because again, some of the stuff, the information kind of changes, so rapidly and everything. But it used to be that if you had the CompTIA A plus certification, and you also obtained the Security Plus certification, that was an automatic qualifier for you to be what is considered, or at least what at the time was considered, a Microsoft a certified systems administrator. So you basically combine those two certifications, and it basically qualifies you for kind of a systems admin or systems administrator role, so to speak. And so to kind of answer your question, my thought process and the logic and the rationale, if you will, behind kind of going into these fields is, wait a minute, break fix, break fix is, it's a, but a lot of times with break fix type jobs, especially within the industry, those are typically more contract. There's nothing wrong with contract jobs. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I in order to break into IT, I started out as a contractor, and that's one of the main ways for. I don't want to say one of the easiest ways, but it's one of the biggest ways to kind of break into the industry. And trust me, I left a full-time job to take a contract position here. So I mean, I'm not doing something or not telling someone to do something that I myself haven't done.
So what kind of money can one expect to make? Because these are high-paying jobs, and you very rarely, Isiah, see people that look like us. So what kind of money can you make, first year, 3 years in, and then at your level? If I'm not mistaken, these are like 6-figure opportunities, aren't they?
Yes, they're very, very much so. If you come in in the entry level, lower end, kind of depending on maybe where you are in the country, you can make as much as, well, I don't want to say make as much as, but you could maybe start out at, $60,000 a year. But I mean, that's on the low end, kind of depending on where you are. I mean, that could very easily go to, 80 or 90, or even, well up into the 100,000, the 6-figure range. So, it all depends on, the area, the region you live in, the market, and, and also, I mean, again, these things are very competitive as well. These industries and these fields and everything are very competitive. So, I mean, it really all depends. But I would say, before kind of giving or assigning a figure, if you will, I would say maybe, I mean, on the low end, maybe $60K a year, $60,000 a year. At a minimum, and then it goes up from there, depending on what you want to go into. It goes up from there. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So hey, man, finish telling us your story and bring us up to speed to where you are now. And I'm looking here in this beautiful background of this amazing looking studio. You got the professional mic, man, dude. You are a Renaissance man, and I'm excited about that, because they try to proclaim that we are a monolith, but
right.
We should be highlighting people like Isiah, Lindsey, who is a completely rounded, diversified person with high level skill set in not one industry, but multiple industries of competency. And on top of that, you have a lot of passions that you do from a hobby standpoint that most people would love just to make a career out of. So, hey man, continue on that pathway, because you got an amazing story, brother.
Sure, and thanks so much. I really appreciate it. So yeah, just kind of to kind of sum it all up, if you will, the certifications and the logic behind kind of going into security, or cybersecurity, if you will, was more of a it was more of a thought process of, wait a minute, security and cybersecurity, this stuff is, I mean, we hear all the time about people, people's personal, banking accounts and things like that getting hacked, personal healthcare information. I mean, there's a huge market for that type of stuff, black market, if you will, to where that, that type of information is very valuable, to hackers and everything. And so my thought process was, well, wait a minute, let me put 2 and 2 together. Now, security, it does at first, and I'm not going to lie, it sounded very daunting, if you will. But the more I kind of looked into it and kind of, studied up on it and everything, I'm like, well, man, hey, this may not be so bad. So, it was kind of funny, but in the process of transitioning from the job that I had at the community college to where I am now, which is a major communications company, if you will. When I was in transition, I specifically went into my search for IT security jobs specifically. Nothing else. And there were opportunities. One of the things that I found out were there were opportunities in IT security or cybersecurity in healthcare, which is big, banking, which is also big, and also communications, which is big as well. So long story short, I landed at the place I am currently right now, at the communications company and everything. And I kind of got into it and I'm like, wow, this is not really what I expected. And what I mean by that was I did not realize how vast IT security or cybersecurity really is. I mean, it is a very vast, very broad field, just very broad. You have within IT security, you have things like vulnerability management, which is basically managing different vulnerabilities that hackers, if you will, or people the bad guys, whatever, they try to exploit.
So let me ask you a question. I was told that they actually hire guys to try to hack the system in order to prevent the hacks. What is that, the vulnerability aspect, or is that another facet of cybersecurity?
No, that's correct. That is one aspect of the vulnerability aspect. You basically, a lot of times when you're doing testing, if you will, there's a saying, or at least the saying that I've heard, is you basically you literally test the system with the purpose of actually trying to break the system. You actually
they actually pay guys a lot of money to do that.
Yes, they pay guys big money, big money to design a system. So you have one team who's actually responsible for designing the system, and then you have another team, if you will, depending on the organization and everything. But you have a whole nother team whose whole purpose or job or responsibilities or roles or whatever you want to call it is to actually try to break the system, to try to hack into the system and break into the system. And one of those things is known as it's actually known as penetration testing.
Wow.
Yeah, it's penetration testing. So basically, a penetration tester, their job or their responsibility is to try to hack into a system and exploit any ability that system has, any weakness that system has. It's their job to basically try to exploit it and everything. And if they're successful, then you move into what's called remediation management. And now remediation management actually deals with fixing the vulnerabilities, or to make it to where an outside, an external source or external hacker or whatever, what have you, cannot exploit that vulnerability or any vulnerabilities pertaining to that system.
So what type of attributes or talents or characteristics would a young person have to demonstrate that actually would, identify them as somebody that potentially could be great at this?
Interestingly enough, you actually mentioned one of the words. So one of the big things is character, and then also integrity as well. You have to have character and you have to have integrity in order to be able to land a job like this, or even to do a job like this, to perform these types of jobs and everything. And one of the reasons being is because, generally speaking, you're not just going to let anyone, random, Joe Schmo off the street. You're not going to trust them, or at least, you shouldn't trust them with, just handing them, access to, the keys to your car, if you will. So that'd be like if you, let's just say if you had a Bentley or a Rolls Royce, you would not hand over the keys to, random person, just that you just met on the street. For the most part, that's just not something that you would do. So you have to have character, integrity. And one of the reasons I bring that up is because there's actually a subfield, if you will, within IT security or cybersecurity called ethical hacking. Now, ethical hacking, and it's part of kind of the the penetration testing, but basically, it's basically allows you, being that you are, whether you're a contractor or an employee, you're again authorized to go into a system to basically hack into a system or try to exploit a system for its to exploit its vulnerabilities or any possible vulnerabilities that it may have. That's the ethical side of it.
Okay.
Now, yeah, that's the ethical side of it. So you have to, and there's actually a code of ethics that comes along with this as well. That you have to you have to be very very ethical in what it is that you're doing.
So you guys have like best business practices, and I have a question. What is the dark web? Because I'm pretty well versed, but I'll be honest with you, I don't really know exactly what the dark web is. And it sounds like the type of stuff that I would see on, a sci-fi, program, and these futuristic, games and, cloak and dagger type venues that you see. Can you give us a one sentence of, like at the 5th grade level, what the dark web actually is?
Great question.
Yeah, great question, by the way. So basically the dark web, if you will, is basically where a treasure trove, if you will, of information can potentially lie, meaning that again, let's say, like going back to two of the most common are, banking, and then also healthcare. A lot of times you can find, or basically what the purpose of a lot of people who kind of access or, kind of use the dark web is to basically try to find information that the average person, if you will, does not know currently exists out there, if you will. And it's basically used to, it can be used for, it can be used for a variety of purposes. It can be used to create, to basically steal someone's identity. It can also be used for, for blackmail, for finding, dirt on someone, or, people, and basically, use as blackmail to kind of get back at someone. But it's basically in a nutshell, it's an area kind of not really seen to the average person, that has a vast treasure trove of information on folks like you and I.
Okay. So with that said, how would the average layman access the dark web? Would it just be like we hop on and drop in www.darkweb.com, or where is the portal that gets me down that rabbit hole with Alice in Wonderland or the Matrix?
Look, I don't want to kind of get down. I don't want to get into.
All right, I know that's too deep. We'll get back on track. We'll talk about that
later. Isiah, you might want to mention that the dark web, the things that you find on the dark web aren't necessarily legal either. So.
Right. Right. That's why I said again, it goes back to, that whole ethical and, the character and integrity, and then also being ethical as well, because a lot of that stuff is, again, those practices, if you will, are what are considered to be unethical.
Sure. So with that aside, we got a little bit off track, but I've always been intrigued and having a security guy on the platform that's also a producer, man. So tell us about your entrepreneurial, endeavors, and tell us about how you got to that point, because you're a real estate developer. You also are an investor, and you got this incredible studio behind you that you're doing some amazing things. Man, tell us about that, because again, like I said, man, you are a Renaissance guy, and you got a lot of different curiosities that you have achieved at an early age, at a very high level that most people dream of. And most importantly, we don't see people that look like you and I in any of these particular industries. Matter of fact, not a lot of us. So you're like a unicorn, but you're not. But in essence, in the corporate world, they would call you a black unicorn.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting, and this is the one thing, the studio, if you will, one of the things I get a lot of compliments on. Again, it's kind of ironic, if you will, that you bring that up, because during my days working at the community college, I had several. The team that my manager put together at the time. I had some great friends. We actually established a great friendship with two people in particular, and we would hang out together, still doing everything. But what these two people in particular, I'd said to them, this is back in 2012. I'd said to them, at some point one day I'm actually going to build a studio, and my friend, they were just kind of like, oh, okay, really, and everything. And again, I have somewhat of a very quirky personality. I'm not really shy, if you will. I'm more quiet and reserved, just kind of observant, taking in, my surroundings and everything. So it kind of throws people off a little bit. But anyway, so I made, several comments about building. I was actually, going to build a home studio, if you will. So that was 2012. So fast forward to 2015. I'd actually started kind of assembling, bits and pieces of a studio and everything. I had monitors, had a mixer, small, I think 8-channel mixer at the time and everything. And just slowly but surely was, started to put together pieces of an actual, kind of like home studio. Well, in 2016, things took a drastic turn. So my father calls me one day, and he's like, "Hey, we've got some cousins who are in town and everything, and both of them are musicians. They're entertainers and musicians and everything." Okay. So I see, he asked, "Hey, you want to go meet them and everything?" And again, we're cousins, and they are local to the area, but I'd never met them. So hop in the car with my dad. We we go and meet one of the cousins, and this is so this cousin, his name is Jet Edwards. Now he is he's a gospel singer, and also / co-founder of the Japan Mass Choir. Now I didn't really know all this at the time and everything. Wow. So I actually meet him. Me and my dad, we go down to the family house to meet them, or to meet Jet, if you will. And we then hop in the car to drive down to Greenville, South Carolina, to see Calvin. Now, Calvin Edwards, he is actually live in concert at this place called it was called Blues Boulevard in Greenville, South Carolina. So we actually hop in the car and go down, and we're on the way down to see Calvin. And again, never met these guys a day in my life. And so I'm riding in the front with Jet and everything, and he's asking me, he's like, "Hey, so what is it that you do?" I tell him about my job and everything, what I do at work and everything. And he's like, "Well, do you have any experience with a camera?" And I'm like, well, outside of, operating the camera at church, I'm, I don't really, know how to operate a camera, but I'm, pretty good at like the basics, if you will. So we continue on, we make it to Blues Boulevard, see Calvin performs, outstanding performance. At the end of the towards the end of the second set, both Calvin and Jet actually did they actually did a song together. And at that point I was blown away. And again, this is the first time I've ever met them. So a couple weeks later, Jet's like, I've got a studio session booked in this place at the studio in Charlotte, and I want you to come along. So he was like, gave me the address and everything. And so I showed up, and he had, he was actually doing a recording for a solo project that he was working on. And so I got there, and I'm just kind of looking around, and I'm like, wow, this is real cool and everything. And I'm seeing like photos of all these legendary artists who have actually performed, or who've actually performed in the studio and written songs and recorded, arranged songs in the studio and everything. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. So I'm just kind of looking in awe of everything. And Jet comes up to me, and he's like, he actually had one of the people on his video team, his videographers, and he basically told them, look, hand him a camera. And so they handed me a camera, and he told me, you follow them and you do whatever they tell you to do.
He put you right to work.
Literally, he put me right to work. And that's just him. That's his personality. That's how he operates.
That sounds familiar, Nick.
So lo and behold, so we finished the studio session and everything went well. And that actually prompted me to actually invest in my own, kind of like entry-level camera, in addition to all the other like audio, equipment and stuff that I had. So fast forward, that was 2016. So I started working with Jet and also Calvin. Calvin performs locally around the Charlotte area, Charlotte, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, Atlanta, Southeast region, if you will. So I was working with him, kind of traveling and everything, while Jet's kind of, back and forth doing this thing between here and Japan. Well, 2017 comes, and Jet calls me up, and he's like, hey, by the way, this year, bringing the Japan Mass Choir over to the United States for a tour. And everything. And I was literally so excited, and to the point where, this is something I'm interested in. I'd love to do and everything. Heck, I'll even pay my own way. He was like, hey, cuz you don't really have to do that and everything. We'll take, I'll take care of you and everything. And so back in June of 2017, I actually had a chance to tour with 40 members of this choir. They came over here from Japan, and basically toured in New York. We actually, ironically, they performed at the legendary Cotton Club in New York, in Harlem.
Wow, I didn't even know the Cotton Club was still.
Yes.
Wow, man, That is incredible, dude.
Yes. So yeah, they performed at the legendary Cotton Club in Harlem. And everything, and then so that was the first leg of the tour, and then we had a second leg of the tour in Washington D.C. So that kind of really sparked my interest, if you will, and just kind of being around Calvin and Jet and working with them along with the Japan Mass Choir. That really sparked my interest in working in music. And so I'm like, okay, I got to get serious at this point. And I'd actually mentioned to Jet, well, hey, I kind of do a little bit of editing on the side and everything, and all this, that, and the third, and my editing skills were absolutely trash. They were horrible at the time and everything. But they took a chance on me and everything, and so I've actually been working with them pretty much ever since. So that's why you see pretty much an investment in a lot of this equipment, if you will. The interesting thing about this, and you bring up the Renaissance, kind of being a Renaissance man, and ironically, that's actually one of the nicknames, if you will, that I've actually been given.
Okay.
by by other people because I do so much.
Right.
But in so that was 2017. So in 2018, I actually started kind of down the road of seeing, if you will, and I use the term producing loosely, but I actually started kind of producing or at least arranging my own music. So I invested in some equipment back here, and I basically just started to kind of experiment with things. Now, the interesting thing about this, and the reason I'm sharing this, is because going back to 2012, when I told my friends, hey, I'm going to build a home studio at some point. So I literally built the studio, if you will, excuse me. And I actually produced a track. And just I'm not going to say out of the blue, but so I produced a track and everything. And I actually sent that track to those two friends. Send them an email. Hey, check this out. This is basically like the first track, if you will, that I produced and everything. Let me know what you think. So send it to them. They listened to it, absolutely loved it. And to this day, I actually still have the email of my friend, both friends actually telling me, wow, you are so talented. Like never, and again, she and they were both just kind of in awe of, oh wow, and by the way, like this actual track, if you will, it fits your personality because it's nice and smooth and it's mellow, it's laid back and everything. So that actually kind of gave me the confidence to keep going in this and everything. And so I've actually I produced a catalog of tracks, if you will, and I've actually got a board, if you will, of different genres. And I'm really big into, most part, I listen to just about any kind of music. And everything from the usual top 40 hip hop, R&B, a little bit of country here and there, alternative, pop country, to chill out, lo-fi, rock, soul, blues, you name, jazz, you name it, I pretty much listen to it. And so I've actually, in the process of kind of doing a lot of this music production, in addition to working with my cousins and everything, I've actually expanded, my catalog, if you will, to include and incorporate different types and different genres of music.
Man, that's incredible, Isiah. So, MIS, cybersecurity, musical background, producer, man, and where do you find all the time to do this stuff? And how do you plan about creating your time? It almost makes me think about the commercial with the Marines, where it talks about, hey, we do more by 6 a.m. than most people do in the whole day. And it kind of leans into what you're doing. And where does the investor and the real estate developer part have time to even come into the equation where you can even do it at the high level as well?
So, in all honesty, so those same friends, they actually give me a hard time as well. The friends that, the really good friends that I have, they actually give me a hard time because I don't get a lot of sleep. I mean, on average, I get maybe 4 or 5 hours of sleep, a night. But it's not because, I'm, up, just doing, just not being productive, if you will, or just wasting time away. I'm literally from the time I wake up, which is anywhere between, I may go to bed around 2, I'm up at 5:36, ish. And I'm usually working from, nonstop, a couple of hours before I get on, before I get online for my job and everything, all the way up until the time that I go to bed. So whether it's, again, the 9 to 5, if you will, or 8 to 5, 9 to 5, whatever. And then after that, get a quick workout in, something like that. And then after that, it's pretty much what I try to do is I try to keep my projects and everything on a rotation, if you will, or on a schedule. So I try to dedicate, 1 to maybe 2 hours, depending on what I have, because I've got my hands in, a little bit of everything. But I try to dedicate 1 to 2 hours, if you will, to these various projects and stuff that I'm working on. And that's in addition to actually managing several different YouTube channels. So I manage the Calvin Edwards music channel for my cousin Calvin, who's a jazz guitarist. So it's basically when I travel with him, I do literally all the production, end-to-end setup. If we go to, a venue, sometimes, we'll have our own, equipment or whatever. And we're really big on and quality. So we actually carry, or we actually have we actually carry our own equipment, if you will. So mixers, speakers and monitors and stuff like that or whatever. So all of that's used and everything. But I usually, like I said, try to dedicate, an hour and a half to 2 hours on, each individual project per day, and things like that. And, time is just, it's one of those things where you have so much in you and there's so much passion. And I kind of, and I've actually heard someone say this before, that basically, life is short. And I don't want to like go doom and gloom here, but life is short. And I want to, at the end, whenever that time comes, I want to leave everything that I have here. And what I mean by that is I want to leave here empty. However, I want for others to be able to feel, to feel and to see and to be able to take advantage of the impact that I've left. And so ironically, that's where the real estate actually comes in.
Okay. So that's when you got the real estate bug.
Yes.
So what did that actually begin with? What kind of project, and where does that lead to today? Because you're doing some amazing stuff, man, on the real estate development side that I think a lot of people should know about, in addition to your do-it-yourself channel on YouTube, man. Talk to us about that, man. Like I said, man, you got an amazing story, man. You're accomplishing a lot of stuff at a high level at a very young age, and it's very impressive. And I would like to let young kids know that even though it's extraordinary, it's not the exception to the rule. They all can follow their curiosities. If they got encouragement, they have a plan, and they put the work behind it. So talk to us about that, Isiah.
Absolutely. So, so as far as the real estate, it's actually something that I thought about several years ago. And at that particular time, it wasn't the right time. I didn't really have the vision. The vision was starting to come to me, but it hadn't fully matured, if you will, or fully fulfilled itself, or revealed itself. That's the word I'm looking for. So ironically, the pandemic, believe it or not, actually sparked the notion for me to venture into real estate. And the reason I say that, so I'm actually in addition to the YouTube stuff, I actually, by the way, I met you and kind of became familiar with you from or by way of Ericka Williams.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's one of our big partners.
Yeah. So
great classy client, Ericka Williams.
Yeah.
Yes,
so so I actually was actually enrolled in a few of her courses and everything. But during the process, when the pandemic first hit last year, I just kind of been looking around and everything, and during that time, again, the bars and things like that, the lounges, at least here in North Carolina, we had some restrictions, if you will. And so my cousin Calvin, he was still
his gigs, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. It tremendously impacted a lot of his gigs. So although, don't get me wrong, he was still performing and still, doing his thing, if you will, but some of the opportunities, if you will, were fewer in between. I'm not going to say far in between, but fewer in between. Mm-hmm. So the pandemic actually kind of gave me some quote unquote downtime, if you will. And during this time, again, I'm enrolled in several of Ericka's courses, and the idea hit me. Now's the time to venture into real estate. And the reason I say that is because my family, my parents, and I actually own several acres of property. And so I immediately just kind of, again, the thought of it, it made me, really excited. And so I basically started putting together plans that are actually,
This man is detailed, Nick.
And I know it's probably kind of hard to see and everything, but I actually started to develop, plans and everything in terms of the property that we have. And it's
Nick, I remember tell that story about when you met your attorney and you laid out that plan, and he was like, "Oh yeah, man, you gonna make it happen."
That's coming. So pretty much from the end of March or maybe early April last year, all the way until December of last year, I basically was working on putting all this information together, because my thing was, and again, this is one of the things that I've learned in my profession, that you always want to put your best foot forward. Even when it's, just for me dealing with my parents and everything, I wanted to basically approach them as, and make this, approach them as a business, as this being a business, a business opportunity for us. And so that explains, the binder of, floor plans and just all the research and everything that I've, was doing and everything, but, between March and December. So I actually met with my attorney in December, and I went into his office and everything, and basically told him what it was that I was working on, and the plans and everything. And I said, basically, before I present this to my parents, I just want to know if it's if it's something that sounds like it would be a viable option and everything, considering what it is that we have. And he's like, he was just absolutely blown away. He's like, wow, usually when I meet with people, or I have people come in, they usually don't bring binders that, with tons of questions, and you're very detail oriented, very strategic, very methodical, very tactical and everything. And I said, hey, I said, I want to make sure that, try to make sure that I'm on the right track and everything, because I want to pitch this to my parents and everything, and kind of get them on board with it. And so met with the attorney. That went well. And then I met with my parents. We actually sat down at the table and had a formal business meeting, if you will. And I made the pitch to them, and they were on board with it. And so now we're basically starting the process of building multiple income properties from the ground up.
Okay. How many properties, and what size of acreage of lot we talking about? And what's the punch date for it actually coming to fruition? Because I know you're gonna hit your dates.
So it's interesting that you asked the question about the lot and everything. So the size of the lot is it's going to be right at to a little over 2 acres. So right at 2 acres to about 2.25 acres, if you will. And as far as the dates and everything, we're still trying to nail that down right now. And the reason being is because we've had a lot of rain here in North Carolina over the past like month and a half. And so it's been very difficult to get a surveyor out here, to the point of we've actually got 2 projects, if you will, kind of going on simultaneously. But in order to kind of get to the second project, we have to address something with the first project as well. And so ironically, the surveyor was just actually out here on this past Monday. And we were doing some surveying and everything. And then my dad and I actually have to probably sometime tomorrow, since the weather is going to be nice, we're actually going to go kind of go map out, some things as far as what was marked off for us and everything. But yeah, so yeah, the timeline and everything is kind of up in the air right now.
Okay.
I've still got a few things that I've got to do on my end. And I met with my attorney last Tuesday to discuss the easement. We've got it's not even an issue. It's just a minor detail pertaining to the easement and everything of this particular property, and kind of how we want to, basically, if we want to have a separate entrance and exit to the property, or to the property and everything. So parents and I are kind of working that out right now, and trying to figure out what's going to be best for us and everything. But yeah, the pandemic is what kind of sparked everything. In addition to the fact that this area where I live, it is growing by leaps and bounds, if you will.
That's a hot spot based on what you showed me. So
Yeah.
how many properties are we going to be able to put on that 2 acre of land, and what type of valuation will we be looking at? And then the third question is, would it be investor opportunities, or these are just going to be sold and held by your corporation as a separate entity of itself?
So right now we're looking at, as far as the number of properties, we're actually looking at 2 separate duplex units. We may, and again, this is kind of where the survey, we're still kind of up in the air right now, in terms of just having some surveying work done. We may shoot for 3 separate properties. We're not really sure yet. We just want to, we're trying to figure out, in terms of the logistics of everything, we're trying to figure out if 3 separate units, which would be 6 duplexes, one of which will more than likely be, well, one of the, we do know that we do know for a fact that one of the units is going to be, it's just going to be a standard 1 floor unit, 2 bedroom, 2 bathroom unit. The other unit, we're actually looking at the potential of building a basement, so 1 story along with the basement, with the potential to rent out the basement units as well, in addition to the 2 top, the two units on the main floor, on the first floor. And then, of course, the third unit, we're trying to figure out if we're going to have enough room, with taking into consideration the utilities and things like that, such as the septic tanks and all that stuff, especially with how the property is situated, because it's kind of somewhat of a tight corner, if you will. So we're trying to kind of map all those things out. So I don't have the definite, the exact, information as far as if it's going to be 2 units, two duplex units, or if it's going to be 3 units. We're still trying to work all that out, considering how the flow and the logistics of things. In terms of the actual return, that is something that I'm actually working with CPA on right now. So I've actually got that scheduled and everything. I mean, we're looking. Well, yeah, I don't want to give any. I don't want to put any information out there without.
Right, absolutely.
So, yeah. So that question I'm not really sure of at this particular moment. I mean, we're definitely looking at maximizing our returns and everything. What exactly that figure is at this particular point, I'm not sure, because we're still in the process of working that out with the CPA. And actually, ironically, one of the CPAs, shout out to James Lane. Yeah. So I've actually got to put in a call to him next week and everything, to kind of get up with him to discuss some of this stuff as well. And I've actually had a consultation with him, and he's been great. Man, so shout out to him. Yeah. Shout out to him
earlier today. He's a beast.
Yeah. So shout out to him.
Yeah, let me ask you this, man. I mean, sure. You're 37 years of age.
Yes.
And you've done all these things, man. What do you envision that Isiah Lindsey is going to look like at age 40, age 42? And what type of wealth do you think that making these chess moves today will put you in position for? Because I think a lot of times, we live in this, want to get money real quick, mentality, but you're building a strong foundation, and you're going to be in position where if you decide to get married, have children, man, they're going to have major, head start. And what I believe in this marathon of life is that all of our children should start where we finished the race. They should stand on our shoulders versus starting all over again. So where do you see Isiah Lindsey, man, at 40 years of age? And what are you excited about, man, at the rest of 2021? Because like you said, for some people, the pandemic has shut them completely down, from major corporations to the small mom and pop to the individual families. And conversely, people have built amazing assets in this pandemic. I mean, our organization alone, I think Nick can attest to, I think we've grown by 50, 60%. So what is Isiah going to look like at 40, and what he's excited about because of this foundation he's building right now today, man?
So one of the things that I'm actually most excited about, as far as, especially on the real estate, in being, venturing into the development, real estate development, is I'm actually, in addition to the 2, possibly 3 properties that we are in the process of building and everything. And I want to touch back on that as well here momentarily. But I actually kind of see myself and envision, myself going from these 2 or possibly 3 units to 10 units.
I love it.
To 10 plus units.
Absolutely.
And that's part of kind of the second phase of the plan. I've actually talked to you about, to some degree, kind of behind the scenes and everything. I don't want to give too much away.
Right. We're gonna talk about that in this interview.
But yeah. So I've actually have my eyes set and have my sights set on owning, in addition to these 2 possibly duplex units, I'm actually looking to own 10 plus units, if you will, or either 10 plus units, or go into building houses as well. That's another kind of avenue that I'm exploring as well. So that's kind of where, over the course of the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, I kind of see myself. And to touch on the generational wealth piece, and you mentioned as well, I'm 37, no kids. This is literally the reason why I'm doing what I'm doing. And a lot of times, I've had,
I love it, man.
Conversations.
Say that again, because you're a believer, and it says, a man that doesn't provide is less than an infidel. So a real man is supposed to provide for 3 generations minimum. So touch base about that from your spiritual aspect, because, man, dude, I had the same plan, man, for my children, and it's laying out better than I could ever imagine. Where people think they got lucky, but they don't realize that before we had these kids, I had a plan, man. I built some assets, and I opened up some doors, and them doors are starting to show fruit on the tree for my children. And I see the same thing with you, brother. Talk about that, man.
So the interesting thing about that is that's actually where, in part, the 2 to possibly 3 units, at least initial units, comes in, because those are basically representations of my future seeds.
Love it.
And from there, I would like to, expound on that and, double, triple that, to where each of my seeds have multiple properties or multiple units that they're able to manage. That I want to do as well is basically, and again, kind of build everything from the ground up. Reason being, and you probably, another interesting thing as well. So when I was 12 years old, my parents actually built their house from the ground up. And so, being that I was 12 years old, I mean, I was
there. What?
No. I wasn't watching. I was working.
Oh, even better.
No. I was working, and I'll never forget.
You were John Henry out there laying that hammer and nails.
So yes, and I'll never forget. And if there's one thing that I know we're not quite to the end yet, but if there's one thing that I would want to leave, kids, or maybe someone watching this, my dad, and this true story, my dad, when I was 11, 12 years old, he made me learn, and I don't have it with me, but he actually made me learn how to read a tape measure. And at that time, I kind of resented him for that. I'm like, oh my God, why do I need it? This is not, it's one of those things. You're a kid, why do I need to do this?
Hey, Isiah, let me interject right here. This is what I tell my kids. I say, hey, you're going to hate me today, but you're going to love me tomorrow.
Yes.
That's exactly what your dad was doing, baby.
Yes.
I love it. Shout out to your dad and your mom foundation. Man, keep it rolling, baby. I love it.
So just to kind of tie everything in. So he made me learn how to read the tape measure and everything. And I'm not gonna say hated him for it, because hate's a very strong word, but I did not like him, during that time, if you will. And but it actually turns out it turns out to be a blessing in disguise, because it's one of the most valuable tools, if you will. It's one of the most valuable tools that you can have. And because of that, as part of working with Ericka Williams, it's actually one of the things that actually sparked me to actually start my DIY channel, on YouTube and everything. And because at first, when I kind of got into the whole YouTube space and everything, I'm like, okay, well, I want to make I'll do videos and do the production and everything for, for my cousin Calvin when we travel and all this, that, and the third. And that, that was fine and everything. But in speaking with Ericka and everything, like when I actually come to find out that DIY is actually like a really big space, if you will, in YouTube. And to tie all of this in together, I'm very and I've known since I was very young, I've always known that I was creative. Again, I'm talking with my hands. I love working with my hands. Love working with my hands, whether it's a hammer, a skill saw, whatever the case may be. I love working with my hands. And so that actually kind of sparked me, the creativity with music and video production and all that stuff. That actually sparked me to, and again, the conversation with Ericka Williams, that actually sparked me to start the DIY channel. And so basically kind of the theme, if you will, of my DIY channel is I basically build, I'll take like different pieces of furniture, and it's actually called ITL DIY and Hacks. So what I do is actually documented to a certain extent building this custom studio that you see behind me. But one of the other things is I'm a huge avid IKEA, shopper or whatever. I love to go to IKEA and find, different products and stuff that they have, and basically actually take them. So what I do is I buy the products and I use them for a purpose other than what they're intended for. So, so for example, I'm not sure. Yeah, you can't see it. But I've actually got these it's actually 3 glass panels that for IKEA, they come as part of the entertainment center for one of their units. But what I did, and the idea that I had, was instead of using them to put a TV on or, for, whatever, they're used for, I actually turned them into glass blackboards. And everyone that's ever come to my studio, I always get compliments on that. Always get compliments. Most recently, I actually took basically the bare bones, if you will, of an IKEA kitchen cabinet, and I actually converted it into, I put it together, but I actually converted it into a bar, and that's actually going to be like one of my next videos. Oh, wow. So again, I've always had, kind of a creative gene or creative spark, if you will.
Man,
I just want to share it.
Yeah, man. Hey, man, you know what, man? We're going to have to do a part 2 to this, man, so we can come back and see the finished projects complete. Sure. Because, man, we don't want to sell this short, but want to wrap this up
sure.
really quickly. Sure. And let Nick, because it's Nick's platform, but, man, dude, I can't say enough. You are the epitome of a Renaissance man. I mean, geez. I mean, MIS, cybersecurity, real estate developer, do-it-yourself, musical producer, man. That is impressive. So I like to be able to come back and I ask you one question. What's the impact? If you can leave us with this and leave us with your contact information. What's the impact that you've garnered and benefited from connecting with Ericka Williams and connecting with other programs like ours that actually gave you even more wings to help your projects get off the ground and give you 100%? No doubt about it. You're going to complete them. They're going to be very successful.
One of the biggest things that both you guys and also Ericka Williams provide, and I never really understood this until I actually started till I enrolled in the courses with Ericka Williams and then also the courses that I've enrolled in with you guys. Networks, because just in working with you, I mean, and I've been exposed to some different things with Ericka, and she's got a ton of a wealth of knowledge. She's very, very smart, very intelligent, a very intelligent lady. But one of the things in working with the two of you, and I'll put it that way, in working with the two of you is the access to people and basically access to different networks that otherwise that I myself would not have access to. Because if especially if I were like initially I was kind of doing a lot of this on my own and everything, but then once coming across Ericka and then by her introducing you guys onto on her platform and everything, and then by enrolling in the courses and the seminars that you guys offer. Just, like I said before, James Lane Jr., just working with him, and in addition to that, you actually provided me with with the contact information of someone else who I've spoken to concerning the property that my parents and I own.
Mentor, yeah.
So
I'm in Detroit right now. So this little kitchen backdrop you see, that's not my house. This is actually my extended stay, unit that I'm renting out for 5 days while I'm in Detroit, and I'll be meeting with Ron tomorrow, man.
Yes.
Yeah.
So just that in and of itself, and I don't say that, and I don't take it lightly, because the information that you shared, and then also that he shared as it pertains to our property and everything, I would have never known, never have even thought or even imagined or even come across without being introduced to Ericka, and then also being introduced to you. So to you guys, so the network that you guys, that you and Ericka have, and the people, all the people that you have on your team and that you're involved in, that you have involved with you, is basically for me, and I can only speak for me personally, it was a blessing in disguise, because the wealth of knowledge that each person brings to the table, and it's a lot of times, I mean, it's such a wealth of knowledge that it can be somewhat overwhelming to even soak up. So sometimes, I mean, I take notes when you're doing the webinars and seminars and courses and stuff like that and everything, and I have to jot it down, and then sometimes I have to kind of put it down and come back to it and everything, and kind of, because I mean, it's a wealth of knowledge that you guys and your team and everything provide. So I would say that just the networks and having exposure to the networks is huge. It's helped me out, and the resources that I've invested thus far, even though I'm just kind of starting down this road in terms of real estate, especially the resources that I've invested thus far as I'm concerned, they've already paid for themselves.
Oh, wow.
It's already paid for. Again, the information that I've gained and that I've been able to obtain from you guys, even if I were working with, other, CPAs or attorneys or what have you, and I've had some exposure to those types of people, but nothing like this.
Oh, wow.
Nothing like this. So I would say the exposure to networks is, and a lot of times, and I want to be short here, but a lot of times we don't realize and take into consideration the what's the word I'm looking for? The opportunities, if you will, that are out there. And that's not even really what I'm trying to say right now, but for lack of a better way of putting it, the information and the opportunities that come along with the information that people like you have, and that people that you have on your team have, it's second to none.
Yeah, man, it speeds up the process. I mean, we coined a new phrase, and we'll close with this when Nick chimes off. It's called STEM. I mean, STEAM. I'm sorry, STEAM. So it's science, technology, engineering, but the most important part is A for access, and the M is for mentorship. And I think in this social media construct with millennials, they forget that us old heads, our experience far outweighs their activity.
Yes.
Because we can shorten your process.
Yes.
Like that.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Immediately. Just like that. We've been there, done it, and we can open up doors for you that typically would take years for you to get open, no matter how smart or how many resources you have, and we can multiply it just like that. So, man, I appreciate you, saying that, and I didn't trigger you to say that, but I'm glad that that's what you got out of the value. So where can we reach you at on your platforms? Nick's going to put that information in the links below. We're going to make sure we get everybody exposed to what you're doing, because we believe in supporting our ecosystem 110%. So give us your contacts and your mediums that we can reach you at, Isiah.
Absolutely. So, I'll do it a little bit of a different way. So if you want to, if you want to hear music, go over to the Calvin Edwards music channel. Again, that's my cousin. He's a jazz guitarist. Go if you want to hear some really nice music from a well-known, world-traveled, world-renowned jazz guitarist. Go check out the Calvin Edwards music channel. Also, have my DIY channel, which is ITL, all capital letters, or you can just type it into YouTube, ITL DIY and hacks. So that's ITL DIY and hacks. And then third channel, I've actually got a real estate channel. I've created the channel, however, I don't have any content on it, so you're not going to see it on YouTube just yet, but it is coming soon, and as soon as it does, I'll let you guys know. Like I said, it's already created, just got some other things that I'm working through and everything, and actually maybe shooting my first video tomorrow for that channel. So I'll probably shoot it tomorrow, not really sure when it'll be uploaded, but once that is done and everything, so I'm actually going to take a journey out into the woods and onto actually on the property and everything,
beautiful.
And all that stuff. So yeah,
brother, document everything, then show us the finished product, and then you'll have massive digital products and speaking engagements that'll come from that. Those are the serendipities, Isiah. Most definitely. So yeah, you can find me on you can find me on YouTube on that platform. Again, sweet. Calvin Edwards channel, ITL DIY and hacks, and then the real estate channel it's already created, but it's man, that is awesome, bro. So Nick, man, take us home, bro. It's your show, brother. This one that was well worth going over our extended time because we couldn't get this man time enough, but we're gonna bring Isiah back in a few weeks, and he's gonna give us some updates on some of these completed projects and the phases that they're in, man. I'm so excited for this opportunity to share Isiah Lindsey with us. So what you got, Nick, on your show, brother?
Oh yeah. So that DIY YouTube channel and the Calvin Edwards YouTube channel, those links are already down there. So you can go ahead and click on those. You don't even have to search for them. Just click on them, hit subscribe, those easy steps. And after you do that, subscribe to our channel too, if you haven't already. But first of all, Isiah, thank you for, sharing your story, and telling us about all the great things you have going on. The biggest things that I got from your story and your experiences was the foresight and the wisdom, and that's something, you're just a few years ahead of me. I'm 30 years old. So that's something that I, aspire to when I, reach, 37. And then of course, reach DJ's level at 5'3", That's 35, man. What are you talking about? 35. Look.
He's joining me.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. Make sure I get that right. And I was also amazed, hearing that you're not married and don't have any kids, and I'm excited about that because you get to, devote 100% focus and really tap into building that foundation. And you can have, and when that time comes, you have that foundation set, and ready to go. Because it's funny, the sisters, they kind of expect you to already have it, when you meet them, and then they kind of get upset when you're working on it. Because you don't dedicate enough time to them. So it's like, which one do you want? So, right. Taking this time now to really focus in and build that foundation, makes things much smoother for you later on down the line, even if it means, making that sister, wait a little bit longer. Right. So I definitely applaud you for that. I definitely resonate with that networking point that you made, in terms of the value that you get out of the programs. I could say the same. Working as a client and then eventually becoming the business manager, DJ has definitely put me in front of lots of people that I never would have met. If I weren't going through his programs and going through this experience, so I can definitely attest to that as well. So those are my final thoughts. wrapping up this conversation. Definitely excited to have you back, to give us the updates on all these projects and all the places you travel on the musical tip. So the way we end this is the way we always end it. We wish you a pom-pom lifestyle. That's plenty of money, peace of mind. We want you to come join us on the Beaches of the World Club. And your beach may not be by an ocean, but your beach is wherever you find freedom. So thank you again for joining us. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel, and we'll see you on the next broadcast.